What are the positional rankings looking like for fantasy football when involving the four teams from the two conference championship games this NFL playoff weekend? Time to break it down right here, right now, as we begin another matchup Thursday, only on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. In-depth breakdowns of those championship games from a betting and fantasy football perspective. We're up there. We'll get into DFS and all that fun stuff with Lineup Friday, looking specifically at the values that you can look at, whether you're playing FanDuel, cash games, DraftKings tournaments, or PrizePicks picks of the week. And we have a lot of exciting stuff to give you there with our PrizePicks selections. We'll have that on Friday. First, we got to break down how all these players stack up against each other. So we usually break up quarterback and running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defenses. We're putting them all in one show because, again, it's only 4 games here. It's a conference championship weekend. Congratulations to the 49ers and Eagles. They'll be deciding who goes to the Super Bowl from the NFC. Same thing later, AFC. The Chiefs will be hosting the Bengals. So still a lot of exciting offensive players left. You got 1 versus 2 in one conference. Here you got 1 versus 3 in the other conference. So really all the best teams that we've seen of late are all here. So exciting to see that, especially with offenses being on the radar and in the spotlight this week most. So that's great for fantasy football. We should see some reliable scoring this week. We'll dive right into all of that here. We'll start with the quarterbacks, how 4 of them stack up against each other this week. This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's Crossover Thursday presented by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is so much fun. It's easy to play. No competing with other players, just use the projections available. All you do is pick 2 to 6 players. They score more or less than their price of projection. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. That's right. It can literally take fewer than 60 seconds to enter. It's that easy. We love PrizePicks. We know you will too. And we'll give you those PrizePicks picks of the week on Friday. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Check it out now. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We're free and available to you on all platforms. All right, let's dive into the quarterbacks in our first segment here. Who's top of the board? It's got to be Joe Burrow. He's on fire here. He's pretty consistent, high floor. Also a great matchup in Kansas City. I know the Chiefs have a pretty decent pass rush, and that offensive line is reshuffled, but Burrow did a great job against the Bills getting the ball out quickly, spread it around. Modest game for him. They actually didn't need a lot because there was much resistance from Josh Allen and the Bills. But I think they could have moved the ball consistently and put up some big numbers. And keep in mind, Joe Mixon also ran in a touchdown. So he had Burrow 2 touchdown passes early to Jamar Chase and Hayden Hurst. So pretty high flow for Joe Burrow. He also had some rushing yards in that game to get a half a touchdown. So when you look at it, this Chiefs secondary, he can pick them apart, put up some big numbers. They need to score a lot to make sure it's out of reach from Mahomes for a comeback, or if it's a shootout back and forth there. So Burrow on point, he's the number 1 guy this week, because I think when you look at the pocket passing and throwing, that's going to be pretty important this week, and that's going to favor Joe Burrow for sure. And Burrow can also take off and run when things break down. He also has a great history, against the Chiefs, 3-0 in his career. He's played really well against them and just gets the job done here. So you got to go Joe Burrow. The most trusted floor of these quarterbacks this week, and a pretty high ceiling as well. Let's go to Jalen Hurts. I think he has a higher ceiling than Burrow this week, but I think his running is going to be a little contained. The 49ers stopped the traditional running game very well. We know that from the regular season. So that's probably going to put more on Hurts to throw the ball downfield. So he kind of becomes like a Burrow or Mahomes, so more contained, have to make those big plays. And The 49ers are tough on the tight end, but they can be vulnerable with their coverage on wide receivers. So that should spell good things for A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. That's how Hurts is going to have to get it done this week. Also, you can see 49ers having a lead in this one, forcing Hurts to throw a little bit more. And Hurts always has a chance in the red zone, even if the rushing is contained in other parts of the field, to pop into the end zone that way, we know. So the multiplicity we like of the Eagles offense and the versatility they can toggle between pass heavy and run heavy. But when we look at the way it's going here, it's more of a passing game for Hurts. With, again, if you're going to get the rushing production, I think it comes to the red zone with pay dirt there. So I think most of the touchdowns are going to be produced by Hurts in this game. I would be shocked, really, actually, if another player scored that delivered in the running game, because you look at Miles Sanders, I think he can be bottled up here. Kenneth Gainwell might be the one guy that you would see pilfering a touchdown again from Hurts, but I do like Hurts more as a passer this week than a runner, but he still comes in at number 2 with that aspect. That puts Patrick Mahomes at 3. It's strange to see Mahomes down there, but the ankle injury is a concern. How mobile is he? What can he do here? But we know the volume is going to be there with Joe Burrow on the other side. It should be a high-scoring affair here. Should get into the 50s. I know it's in the high 40s right now, partly tied to the Mahomes injury, but he'll find a way to manufacture offense. They're a pass first team. I don't think they'll be in a positive game script necessarily to be able to run the ball, as the Bengals are favored on the road in Kansas City. So Mahomes is third. I'm going to be modest with him. I think he's a floor play this week. The ceiling is limited. So Burrow gives you floor and ceiling. Hurts gives you the ceiling. I think Mahomes gives you the floor, but limited elsewhere with the production, just because I don't think you're going to see those off-script plays and maybe not running to supplement his stats this week. Then we look at Brock Purdy. He comes in 4th. Brock Purdy coming in, I think that's something special here for the 49ers, but I don't know if he's going to have to do a lot. Last week, he didn't have a touchdown pass, and they were able to beat the Cowboys. I think there'll be a little bit more passing this week, but I think it's going to be a little bit more running that you see from the 49ers. So that's something definitely we're going to think about here. So, yeah, we might not get that Purdy is 4th here. He's red hot. He's put up some huge numbers. But when we look at that, I see Purdy, again, being more of a facilitator this week, where I think the pressure is going to be on Mahomes and Burrow, and that game going back and forth for both of them to produce. You'll also see Jalen Hurts, again, put a little bit more burden on him as a passer this week. So that's how it breaks down. I think Purdy, his floor and his ceiling are a bit limited this week, the way the 49ers operate their offense. The Eagles' defense is also pretty tough. So that's how you kind of break it down. That gives you like the combination of what we're thinking here. So we like the combination of them at the top for the biggest upside, then kind of the mixed bag in the middle, and then Purdy clearly comes in 4th based on what these other guys have done with their fantasy football reality production of the season. Now, Chad Henne, I would put on the radar. We expect Mahomes to play, but maybe there's something that happens late here. He would drop to number 4 behind Purdy should Mahomes be ruled out. So again, we might not get that why Purdy and Mahomes are behind the other two, but when you really break it down and you look at the way things are going, I think Burrow and Hurts are going to have to pass more and want to pass more based on the matchups to win these games. All right, there you have it. There's a look at the quarterback rankings here: Burrow, Hurts, Mahomes, Purdy. We'll look at the running backs and wide receivers, how they stack up against each other for this playoff round here. The conference championship weekend, we'll do that in our next segment. The NFL playoffs are here, and I got to tell you, I can be more excited about our special new betting partner here at Locked On and Locked On Fantasy Football. That is FanDuel, and they're the number one sports book in America. That's why we're so excited. If you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today and get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/locked-on to take advantage of that offer. FanDuel is all your favorite bets, from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. Really, we'll get into the bets tomorrow, as well as we do the FanDuel cash games. We'll get into some of the FanDuel betting stuff we also like on the show. So we'll add that into the mix, as well as with FanDuel and our prize picks of the week. So excited about that to break the game down for you from the gambling perspective going into the weekend. We'll also look at some things that you can look at prop wise as well with the yardage. So good stuff there on FanDuel. It's all on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $100 and $50 in free bets, win or lose. That's $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we will continue the show here in Locked On Fantasy Football in a moment. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Subscribe to the Locked On NFL podcast and get daily conversation on the biggest NFL stories, including the coaching hiring cycle and the conference championship games. Plus, in-depth analysis of the biggest games with NFL predictions. That's Friday. That's tomorrow's show. And Monday, local insiders cover the weekend. So we'll get the good breakdown of Eagles 49ers and Chiefs Bengals with the game-to-game episodes there on Monday. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's look at the running back rankings, starting with Christian McCaffrey. I really like the 49ers running game this week. I know there was a bit of a calf condition that they talked about with McCaffrey, but with the time to heal, he should be good to go here at full strength. They're going to run him pretty well. This is what they got him for, to get back to the Super Bowl, special element in the backfield. So I think McCaffrey has a huge game here. Eagles linebackers, the weakest spot of what they do. Their run defense has sprung the most leaks compared to their pass defense. That's why we also didn't like Purdy as much as what we get from the 49ers running game. So really high McCaffrey this week. Bounce back week, he was still pretty good. And the yardage was limited against the Cowboys, but had a touchdown, still was involved quite a bit in the passing game. So half-point PPR, especially like McCaffrey. Full point, we love McCaffrey because that's what he does to dominate there as a receiver. So he's going to be busy. I think he runs well, he catches well, he scores well. What else is new with McCaffrey? But that's why he's on the board with the highest volume and the highest effectiveness this week as the key to the 49ers beating the Eagles on the road. Joe Mixon, great game last week against the Bills. I was surprised how well they ran the ball. They were very efficient. I think they got their offensive line kind of sparked by doing that, the Bengals. So Mixon should get involved quite a bit again. The Chiefs are a little bit better at containing the run this year, but they can't get Mixon involved a little in the passing game. That also puts Samaje Perine a little bit on the radar this week. But I think Mixon, you can pound it on the Chiefs, and maybe the positive game script as well is going to help Mixon touch the ball like he did last week and play the closer for the Bengals once again. Isaiah Pacheco needs to be involved. I think you look at the Bills, they abandoned their running game too early there. The Ravens had some success in the wild card round. The Chiefs need to remember to stick to the run, especially when Mahomes is banged up and can't buy time or run around himself. So Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, that combination of that order. Pacheco has been more involved in the power running game. McKinnon's role is a little bit sporadic with Kadarius Toney also having a kind of a hybrid role as a receiver and runner here for them. So that hurts a little bit with McKinnon, but Pacheco and McKinnon are really the keys for the Chiefs pulling off now the mild home upset against the Bengals. You got to keep the ball in these guys' hands, make something happen. Bengals run defense is tough, we know, with DJ Reader, BJ Hill in the middle of the field, but you still got to stick with it a little bit. That's the Bengals' one weakness versus trying to force things in the pass with the gimpy Mahomes in this game. So that's why they come in next. And Miles Sanders, that's why he comes in behind both of the Chiefs running backs here. It's a very tough matchup against the 49ers. Run defense, we've seen in the tougher matchups this season, Sanders can really struggle and not give you much at all, by the way, of fantasy. So he's there to be safe. And we like McCaffrey. That means we also like Elijah Mitchell behind him. And McCaffrey is a little bit banged up. That should give Mitchell a few more key opportunities here. I do like the 49ers to win. I think he can run on the Eagles, so that helps with Elijah Mitchell. So that's what he does, comes in behind the three starters there, and CMC, Mixon, and Sanders, as well as the committee of the Chiefs. I like Elijah Mitchell. After that, Kenneth Gainwell ran well last week. He can also get open and get quick in the open field, so that's going to help him maybe more than Sanders between the tackles. So that's why I like Gainwell right after Mitchell. Again, I do like the 49ers running game to be more productive than the Eagles, but they're going to have to get a little bit more Gainwell involved after his hot finish to the game last week, closing it out against the Giants. So Gainwell, I think, with Miles Sanders, Boston Scott here well off the radar. I think you look at Sanders, Scott going into free agency. We talked about it. Gainwell should be a higher priority to have a key role for the Eagles next year. Samaje Perine, we'll see maybe a little less of him as they involve T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd at wide receiver a little bit more in the passing game. So Perine comes in behind Mitchell and Gainwell in terms of the pure backups here. And Kyle Juszczyk is a wild card that the 49ers could use at fullback to make some plays against the Eagles. So something to look at there. But you're pretty much touchdown dependent with Juszczyk because we know he's not going to get the ball in other spots to have that consistent yardage or catch presence. All right, let's go to wide receiver, starting with Jamar Chase. Love him this week. You love him every week, but they've done a great job of trying to get him open, even when the big plays don't develop downfield, get him in open field and shorter plays. So that's been a big adjustment here for the Bengals. Chase was contained early in the year, but made him more versatile, put him in the slot, move him around. He's very tough to cover. We saw him make that great play in the middle of the field for a touchdown, almost had a second one in that game against the Bills. So I'm not putting Jamar Chase beyond number one. This is his spot here to dominate, and the Chiefs secondary, we said, is struggling. A.J. Brown, this is an A.J. Brown game. Last week is Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. We talked about that a lot, that working away from Brown might be the game plan against the Giants with their secondary being a little bit more intact. Work in the middle of the field, that's what we did see. But this week, they have to get Brown involved on the outside. He's the one game changer they have against the 49ers coverage and beating them if there's enough time against their pass rush with that great offensive line for the Eagles. So A.J. Brown comes in at number 2 behind Chase. T. Higgins, Chase's teammate, I think he'll have a bigger game this week. He was a little bit quiet last week. Did draw a key pass interference penalty downfield, but that was his big highlight. Not too involved with passing it. But again, we expected a lot more passing volume from the Bengals with the Bills putting up some numbers. That didn't happen. So Higgins is going to definitely be involved this weekend. Those outside corners can be exploited here. And if the Chiefs make a change there, I think Higgins is still fine if L'Jarius Sneed plays on the outside. So Chase and Higgins not too far separated in the lineup just by Brown this week in the fantasy football wide receiver rankings. Deebo Samuel comes next. Middle of the field for the 49ers is the way they're going to attack. So Eagles more on the outside with Brown. 49ers in the middle of the field with Samuel. So he comes in as the 4th receiver here. Right behind him is Devonta Smith. Smith, we know, can also line up outside. So Samuel just be a little bit more involved as the number 1 receiver there for 49ers. Smith, more of that clear number 2 role this week with Brown expanding here. Brandon Ayuk comes in next to opposite Deebo Samuel. Again, this Eagles secondary is pretty good with the combination of Darius Slay and James Bradbury on the outside. So they're going to have to get Ayuk open, but he still is a pretty special number 2 receiver that they have in San Francisco. Then you get into the peripheral receivers here. Kadarius Toney saw good touches for the Chiefs in high leverage situations last week, so he should get more involved as their top receiver. Tyler Boyd, I think there can be some more availability in the slot this week for production for the Bengals against the Chiefs, so that's something to watch. I do also like the Chiefs exploiting some of the Bengals inside here. They are down to Eli Apple and Cam Taylor-Britt. These guys can struggle. So Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling are the next guys you look at. It's hard to predict because Juju's volume can go up and down. Valdes-Scantling is big play or touchdown dependent, so hard to go there this week, and that's why it drops pretty fast. Jawad Jennings could be a little bit more involved if they want to use 3 receiver sets and try to create better matchups there for the 49ers against the Eagles secondary, so something to watch there. Then you have Trenton Irwin. He's made a few plays here for the Bengals of late. But again, it's hard with all the mouths to feed, including the 3 receivers and tight end Hayden Hurst. You got Quez Watkins. I think the Eagles need to involve him a little bit more as a 3rd receiver to help Brown and Smith more so than Dallas Goedert in this particular matchup. So we'll see what we get from Watkins, but he pops on the radar. And finally, the 4th Chiefs receiver I like a little bit more than Sky Moore, Justin Watson. He's had a good track record making some big plays for Mahomes this year. The former Buccaneer, I think there's some trust there downfield. So, again, these are some dart throws once we get past Boyd, really. Their roles are very ambiguous. Smith-Schuster, Valdes-Scantling, and Watson. Then you look at Jennings, Irwin, and Watkins. These are more reach plays here, hoping for one play that works in their favor in the red zone or downfield that you get the payoff on when we look at DFS. But, yeah, the principle is you look at the 49ers running game. We love them with CMC and Mitchell. We love the Bengals passing game here with Chase and Higgins. The matchups line up the best for those entities here for fantasy football in week 21, otherwise known as Conference Championship Weekend in the NFL. We'll get into the tight end and defensive special teams rankings in our final segment here in Locked On Fantasy Football. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football, as we said at the top, was brought to you by PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. You make entries at PrizePicks.com. It's just you versus projections available, and you just go for more or less, and that's all you do here to play PrizePicks. It's that easy to get into this version of daily fantasy sports. How does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players. They score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can now win up to 25 times your money on entry. That's right. So it's a lot of excitement. The more players you involve, you're trying to put it together, and you really can get a big payday there. So a lot of fun to figure out where we want to go, more or less. We tend to go more here with our advice here on Locked On Fantasy Football, but you can go more, you can go less. It's no competing against other people, just you versus projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes the NFL and NBA season, as well as the NHL, college basketball, women's college basketball also out there doing well for the action. And we got some big things coming up. Baseball going to be back sooner than you think here. So a lot of good ways to get in on PrizePicks, especially NFL right now. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. You can expect safe and fast withdrawals from PrizePicks. And it's currently operational in more than 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match worth up to $100. All right, it is time to close the show. We're looking at the tight end and defense special teams rankings, so not a lot to look at there, but a good way to address 2 more positions here. Travis Kelce has to be number 1, coming off a big game with massive catches. 14 catches, just came 1 short of the NFL record, tying that of the playoff record set by Darren Sproles. And looking at just the potential for Travis Kelce to do that again. He's going to get high volume. The Bengals have done a good job containing him quite a bit here. So look at it. I mean, you look at Sproles, James White having that record before Kelce. So interesting the way they're using him, short extension of the running game. Really, their lifeblood of the passing game, like a check down running back. Kelce's been treated as kind of like that. So again, Travis Kelce, hard to go down from him as the number 1 after what he did last week. So the tight ends did really perform very well last week. All these guys that we're talking about in starting roles, really, there's only one that didn't score. That was Kittle, and he had a very good game. He had 95 receiving yards, including that great one-handed tip-to-him catch off his helmet there from Brock Purdy last week. So Kittle, you look at the Eagles, you can exploit them a little bit with tight ends. That's a weakness, I think, in the middle of the field with safeties and linebackers. So Kittle should have another nice game here. Dallas Goedert, by the numbers, the 49ers are pretty good against the tight end. Last week, they did yield a touchdown to Dalton Schultz. So Goddard may be a little bit more touchdown dependent this week, as again, this becomes more of a Brown Smith outside wide receiver week than for him in the middle of the field for the Eagles. Next up is Hayden Hurst. Great game from last week, but I think this is more of a Boyd spread out game this week. I know the Chiefs are pretty vulnerable in coverage against a tight end, but Hurst has been pretty key here when needed and healthy for the Bengals. So it still comes in 4th because just based on the talent and production of these guys ahead of him, he has to fall that way. If you're looking at backup tight ends, you got to look at Noah Gray. Get a little bit of run behind Travis Kelce, but not much there. Mitchell Wilcox getting a few catches behind Hurst for the Bengals. Not much else to see there, really, with 49ers don't incorporate too many other tight ends. The Eagles definitely, it's been more about Goddard of late as well. So that's all you can look at. So Kelce, Kittle, Goddard, Hurst is where we break it down this week. How about the defenses? I think you have to start with the best defense in this round. It's the 49ers. And if we like them winning, the 49ers, therefore, would have a little bit more success than the Eagles. For the host of the 49ers, Eagles back-to-back, clearly the best, most talented defense with the chances of making plays in this one. Then comes the Bengals. If Mahomes is limited, maybe some sacks, maybe some chances for takeaways here if he can't force things well off script. So I do like the Bengals here. So pretty much breaking it down like this: 49ers, Eagles, the 2 best defenses with the team winning going first in our minds, and then the Bengals, Chiefs, same thing there. 2 of the lesser defenses, but going with the winning team there to maybe make a few more plays in the pass rush against Mahomes than the Chiefs do against Burrow in that one. So pretty simple to break down for you there. There's only 4 defenses, makes it a lot easier in a given week. So there you have it. There's a breakdown of the positional rankings there, looking to half-point PPR. So look at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and streaming defense here for your conference championship weekend. AFC, NFC are 2 games, so a lot of fun there. We will put all this in a blender and spit it out from a DFS perspective and then a gambling perspective as well. Tomorrow on Lineup Friday, we'll have that for you to close the week here in Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For a second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. Bring you the local insights you love, the national spotlight. We daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, including what's going on with the big games ahead of the Super Bowl, as well as the teams looking for new coaches and coordinators. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll check you out to close the week on Lineup Friday.